Hello my friends, I hope you're having a lovely day, and in today's video we are going to review Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, which I've spent a great deal of time with. I have to say right off the bat, there is a litany of stuff that I am not allowed to talk about, show, or even hint at. So to err on the side of caution, we're going to keep things safe. We're just going to show battle footage and even some stuff in battles I can't show. So if you're worried about spoilers here, I really wouldn't worry about them, especially for my review, because I don't want to accidentally talk about anything or show anything that I'm not allowed to. But I will give you my detailed thoughts on the game itself and how much fun I had with it. There are some games for me that are very hard to put down, and they're so much fun that I simply cannot get enough of them. And sometimes it's just specific modes in games. The best example I can give is Resident Evil when it comes to Mercenaries mode. There's just something for me that is so addictive with the Mercenaries mode. I never get tired of going in, shooting zombies in the head, kicking them down, finding better weapons, trying to get a better score. There's just something about that gameplay loop that really keeps me interested. And that is, to a T, how I feel with Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. It just it checks all the boxes for me when it comes to fun gameplay. Every single battle, every single side mission, everything even about like going around the map and checking off little spots to get upgrades to your health or to your weapons or to whatever. It just constantly rewards you, and the gameplay itself is rewarding, and it feels so good. I really can't stress the last time I played a game where just the pure gameplay alone made me feel amazing. Like, it's just so good. It's like having like your favorite snack, and you're always hungry for that, and you always want it, and it's always a treat, and I never get tired of it, and that's exactly how this game makes me feel. Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity is absolute insanity in the best ways possible, more so than the original Hyrule Warriors. This game has just dialed everything up to 11. It's absolutely ludicrous. The different moves that you have, and the fast-paced frenetic action, and the over-the-top visuals when you do special moves, and the explosions, and the enemies. Oh my god, it's just so crazy. The whole time you feel like you are a superhero. It just feels so good to play. Swinging around all different types of weapons and doing all kinds of elemental attacks and using runes to drop bombs or to freeze enemies or whatever it may be. Because every character has their own little twist on that stuff. Obviously, each character has their main method of attack, and they use that in various ways. And then they all have access to the runes as well, and they each use those in a different way. So Link will throw out volleys of bombs, and Mipha will... What does Mipha do? I think she rains down bombs on enemies. And Zelda can call out like a giant bomb that walks around and spits out little bombs, and you control that to walk around. And that's obviously just the bomb rune. And there's just so many different ways to play and so many different ways to attack enemies and string together combos. It kind of feels like a fighting game. Obviously, it sounds kind of stupid because there's lots of fighting going on in this game, but it's not a traditional fighting game. But it feels like a fighting game, but with really simple controls, because you're hitting X and Y most of the time. You throw in Z, R, and A in there every once in a while when the opportunity comes up, but it's like X, Y, X, X, Y, 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 X, X, Y, X, X, Y, and you learn more as you go on, and it usually just tacks on another X or a Y, and you just, with all the enemies that are going around, it's so easy to string together combos between hundreds of enemies, and the counter just keeps ticking up, and enemies are flying everywhere and bursting into clouds of smoke. It's just nuts. It's so nuts, and it's so much fun. I really have to appreciate a game that takes such a simple gameplay mechanic of, here's a buttload of enemies, take them out. That's it. That's really it. You fight bosses and sub-bosses, sure, but it's just waves and waves of hundreds of enemies, and it's just you go in and you take them out. But that little gameplay aspect just feels so good. I don't know why that is. I think it's because it makes you feel so powerful, and everybody's moves are so different that there's just so much variety, and you have different weapon types to go with as far as main weapons. So, you know, Link can have a sword, or a sledgehammer, or a boomerang, or whatever. The same thing for other enemies. They get different stuff too, or other playable characters. And it just, I don't know, it makes that core, simple, straightforward gameplay mechanic that much more engaging. It's like the developers knew, yeah, we got something here with this tiny little bit of gameplay, and we can stretch it out all the way to the end of the game, throw in a couple elements here or there that spice things up, but this should take us through to the end, and I can't stress enough that I never got tired of it. Like I just mentioned, there are some things to spice up what happens in levels, and that goes for main missions as well as side quests. So main missions, I think the real big changes in main missions are level design, because the levels are quite big and they really have a lot of different aspects to them. There's like some levels have a lot of verticality to them, and some levels are just sprawling, and other levels have little narrow passageways for you to work your way through and spiral up through a level. The design is really cool, and obviously the settings change. You're on mountains, you're on hills, you're on volcanoes, you're in the rain, you're in the snow, you're in towns, all different kinds of stuff. So that really does help spice up the straightforward gameplay. It just feels good. And then you have other objectives in there. It'll be like, take out this boss, or go protect these 4 guys on the map that need your help in a battle. Nothing mind-bending or anything like that, but enough to make you feel like you're doing something. And because of the fast-paced action, when these objectives come up, you're just like so on the fly and so crazy that you pull up the map and you look where you gotta go, and you're like, okay, I gotta get there. And you can direct your other AI people to go where you want them to go. So you can be like, Mipha, you go over here, Zelda, you go over here to help these guys out, and they'll do their thing, and you pick one of the objectives you want to go to, and you take care of that, and then you can switch to the other characters and play as them as well. So let them do their own thing, and hopefully they'll do a good job. And then when you're done taking out a boss, you could, or a sub-boss, or completing an objective, you could swap to somebody else and take over for them and do that as well. Or maybe they'll have taken care of it already while you're doing your thing. So it's just constant fast-paced action, levels that are really fun to explore. You get treasure all the time, like rupees and items and weapons and food and just all kinds of stuff. I feel like I'm sounding like a crazy person talking about this game, but that's exactly how the game makes you feel. It's just crazy. There's so much going on. It's all out action, and it's just a blast. There's some side quests that are really interesting as well too. They're obviously much smaller, but they put some neat little wrinkles in there. That'll be like, defeat this amount of enemies in this time limit, or take out these bosses before the time limit goes up, or you have to go into a level using this type of weapon, or you have to complete a level without, or a side quest without getting hit once. So there's a lot of different stuff in there, and depending on your level and the level of your weapon and what you're using, some of them can be pretty challenging. And obviously, challenge comes into play as well when you talk about the different characters, because you're not going to be the best with every single character out there. You may be really proficient with a good amount of them, but there's going to be 1 or 2 that give you a little bit of a challenge just because you have trouble finding the rhythm of how they play, or they're just so far outside of your wheelhouse of how you usually approach situations that they're going to be hard to handle. For example, me, I suck at playing as Zelda. I'm okay, but I'm certainly, I would say, the most weak when it comes to playing as Zelda. And you're seeing footage of one of the side quests that I was trying to tackle, and it was giving me a pain in the butt, because I had tried it a few times, and I was leveled up appropriately, and I could have had a better weapon at this point, but I didn't have the option to level it up anymore, because I didn't have the things that I needed. And I couldn't get it done, but it never got frustrating, because I was like, well, I'll give it one more shot, see if I can improve. And I learned more combos as I went on and learned to handle things differently. But then I was like, if I can't get it done, I can come back later when I'm leveled even more, or I have a stronger weapon or something like that. So there are some of these, depending on how leveled you are and how proficient you are in characters, that are going to give you a little bit of challenge. I addressed the frame rate situation in my preview, and I talked about how I hadn't played the demo, but I heard all the complaints about the frame rate. And in my preview, I said that I really didn't notice any major frame rate issues in the final game. And having spent a lot more time with it, I can say the same thing. And I am not really annoyed by frame rate issues unless they're absolutely abysmal, like things slow to a crawl for multiple seconds. Then I'm like, all right, this is frustrating. But I never really experienced anything horrendous for me. You're going to see frame rate dips without a doubt. And again, it all depends on how many enemies are around you and how quickly you're going and how many special moves you're using, because a lot of characters have extremely flashy moves. And if you have like runes flying out and you're going into a special move and there's 100 enemies around you, then when you go into that special move, things might chug for a second or two, but nothing bad. I can think of one example where I was fighting a boss that I can't show you, and I was like, oh, like I went in for a special attack and there was lightning flying everywhere and a whole bunch of other stuff going on, and the game chugged for like 3 seconds or so, and then it got back into it, and that just sticks out in my head as one of the worst examples. It's not a steady 30 frames per second by any means. I don't know how often it dips below 20 frames per second, but I'm just being completely honest with you guys. I'm not making excuses for the frame rate or the frame rate dips, because they are certainly there. It's not a smooth frame rate, but it is not anything that soured the experience for me. But again, I just want to stress I'm not usually all that upset with frame rates that go all over the place, as long as they don't chug for a long time, like 5-10 seconds or something like that, or get in the way of gameplay, and those two things never happen to me. What I will say is that sometimes I had some camera issues, and it was because of an enemy's relation to a wall or something like that, and how much space you had to walk around. Almost always my camera issues came up when I was dealing with bosses or sub-bosses, because you can lock onto them. And, you know, you're dodging around their attacks and trying to get into flurry based off your dodge. And sometimes you dodge into a wall and they're close to the wall as well, and the camera pushes in really close. And I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. And I would backflip out of it to get a better view. And it did happen to me fairly often. It didn't make me angry, but it's certainly notable because I want to see what's going on. And sometimes you're just dashing between so many enemies and so many other things when you're fighting these bosses or sub-bosses that you get lost in it when this camera stuff happens. So you have to, like I said, take a step back flip out or side dash out and get your bearings and then go back in. So it can be frustrating, and it also happens when there's an enemy that is in the air. Because they're higher up and your camera's seated a little bit different, so when they're jumping around or flying around in the air and you're trying to see what's going on, the camera can get a bit wonky. So again, nothing horrendous, but I would certainly say my camera issues during bosses and sub-bosses are a bigger complaint for me than the frame rate was. What I will not complain about is the game's music, because this has a really good soundtrack. I was surprised. I didn't think I went in with no expectations as far as the music went, which is kind of weird to say about a Zelda game, because you're usually like, oh, Zelda games have great music, but it's a spin-off, and I was like, I don't know, I'll see how it is. Some of these levels have really great songs. I don't think there were any songs that I disliked. They all did a good job of like fitting the action and getting you pumped up and like keeping pace with all the craziness that's going on. And you know, it's like an action movie or something like that. When you have a song that's backing what you're doing and it just fits the action so well, you get more pumped, you get more into it, and you're like, oh man, this is so cool. And that's how I felt. So the music not only does a good job of fitting the action, but it's just really great to listen to as well. I'm eager to listen to some of these tracks outside of playing the game. To tell you the truth, besides my like deep appreciation for the game itself, I was most surprised by the soundtrack. There's a lot of really good stuff here. As far as graphics go, or just the look of the game, it looks pretty much exactly like Breath of the Wild, and I'm someone who happens to like the look of Breath of the Wild, so that's perfectly fine by me. Obviously, it's not as detailed in some areas because of all the stuff that's going on, but still, definitely holds the look, the overall look of Breath of the Wild. And obviously, that's even more closely retained when it comes to the cutscenes, which use an in-game engine. And if you have different outfits on Link, those will be reflected in the cutscenes as well. So if you got him running around in full knight's armor, you'll see that. If you have him running around shirtless, you'll see that. So that's always good. But yeah, if you like the look of Breath of the Wild, then you'll like the look of Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. And as silly as it sounds, I have to praise the map, the overworld map design. Obviously, it's using the same overworld map as Breath of the Wild, but you do a lot of little things on them that that open up all different avenues for your character. Like I said, each little location will have things that it needs, so it'll be like, this place needs 3 of these flowers and 10 of this type of meat and 11 of this other thing. And you'll pick them up during battles, and if you don't pick them up and you want to find them, you can set out a beacon that'll show you which locations on the map you can visit to possibly find those things. So then you spend those items and you open up areas, and sometimes they open up new shops, sometimes they level up your health, sometimes they give you different weapons, sometimes there's all different kinds of stuff. And some are going to be more important than others, but it gives you a really good sense of progression. It makes you feel like you're doing something. Even though you're just moving an icon around a map, it just, something about it feels good, because more things are lighting up and you're clearing them and they open other things and you feel like you're doing something. Again, to go back to Resident Evil, it's kind of the same feeling I get from fixing up your inventory, where you're like, okay, I'll slot this thing over here, move this here, and then I can carry this and I'll combine these things. It's that same sort of like organizational satisfaction, even though you're not organizing anything in Hyrule Warriors. It's just, I guess, a sense of completion. You're like, I don't know. It's so hard to put into words, but I really liked it. Like every time I got out of a menu or out of a battle, I was like excited to see what was going to light up on the menu or on the map, and see what items I already had, so I could clear those out and see what else opened up. And like I said, it's not just, you did it, congratulations. There's multiple benefits. You want to do that stuff because you get stronger and better. If you don't do that stuff, you're going to miss out on a ton, and the game's going to be a lot harder. Some places on the map will let you spend money to level up your character, so you don't have to worry about going into each level to grind out everybody's level. So like if you play as Link a lot and he's a level 20 whatever or 30 whatever, I don't know, and then you don't play as Rivali and he's like a level 4, you don't have to spend a whole bunch of time redoing missions to get him leveled up. You can go pay some guy some rupees and it levels him up. And you can pay somebody else to fuse weapons to make a better weapon. So you pick one weapon that you are using as your main weapon, or one of your main weapons, and you can take other weapons that you've collected and break them down to make that weapon stronger. You don't have to just make one weapon stronger. You could have a set of 5, you could have a set of 10 weapons that you like to keep in your inventory. It's up to you. But yeah, you break down your other weapons and levels those up and you get different benefits. So again, I can't stress enough that the map has a lot of things to do, and so many of them are important, and so many of them will make the experience so much better for you. I feel like I'm like really hyped in this review. I feel like I'm talking very quickly, and that just goes to show my excitement for the game. It's so nice when you get a game that you weren't expecting to be like... I didn't think the game was going to be bad by any stretch of the imagination, but I had no idea I was going to enjoy it as much as I did. It's really blown me away. And I haven't even talked about the story, which again, there's so much that I can't talk about with the story and so many things that I can't reveal. But obviously, story plays a big part in this. And story was the main reason I was excited for this game to begin with. And there's plenty going on here. I guarantee you're going to see things happen that you never would have expected to happen. And the story certainly has some unique twists to it. No spoilers at all, just I want to put that out there. It's a really engaging story. The voice acting, just like Breath of the Wild, is a mixed bag. If you liked the voice acting in Breath of the Wild, you should like it here overall. There are some other characters that have voices and are voiced that you've never heard before, and for the most part, the newcomers are really good. But the people who did the voices in Breath of the Wild for that cast have returned for this game, so... you know, the voice acting I can give or take. I wouldn't mind if the game didn't have any voices, but the voice acting here is fine. I'll say it's fine. Some characters are better than others, but nobody's horrendous. But they do bring the story to life, which I would imagine a lot of Breath of the Wild fans and Zelda fans in general are going to appreciate, because Breath of the Wild gave us more story than usual for a Zelda game, and this Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity certainly continues that. You get way more here, and you get some interesting insights, so look forward to that. We got the surprise reveal of Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity not that long ago, and I was equally surprised with how much I love this game. It is just all out fun. It shows you what a game can be when it just focuses on stupid fun. Like I said, it's over the top in so many ways, and there's so many things to do, and just it's just fun. It's just all out fun. As I said very early in the review, I can't remember the last time I had this much pure fun with a game, and that's such a big compliment for me, because I love serious games. I love super intricate and detailed games. I love all different kinds of genres. But there's something to be said for straightforward experiences that provide a ton of fun, and you never get tired of them. I thought for sure I would get tired of this kind of gameplay, but I really didn't. It's really making me question my opinions of games, because I thought this wouldn't be my cup of tea, but I am very wrong. I'm always open to new experiences with games, and as I said, I was looking forward to this with the story, but man, it really blew me away. It's opened my eyes to this genre in general. I'm like, maybe I gotta go play some more Dynasty Warriors games, because I really loved this. So hopefully you feel the same way. Obviously the demo is out there if you're still unsure, so give the demo a shot. But yeah, if you like crazy action and Legend of Zelda and plenty of things to do, and man, I can't say enough good things about this game. Again, frame rate is iffy. And the camera can be wonky at times, but those are my complaints. And again, the frame rate didn't really bother me, so I don't know what else to say. You can probably tell I'm shocked with how much I really like this game, but boy, oh boy, did I like it. Alright, my friends, that's today's video. Thanks for liking, watching, subscribing, and commenting. It's always appreciated. I also greatly appreciate those of you who support my Patreon, which helps me do videos like this, helps out with the site, the podcast, social media, all that good stuff. If you'd like to learn more about the Patreon, which is just $1, you can check out a link in the description below. But as for today, that is it. I will be back tomorrow with something, so until then, have a lovely day and a lovely evening, and I'll see you in a few short hours.